I've been watching this tank for a while, and I really can't tell if there's a boss in here. Now, usually when you think of African cichlid tanks, you imagine there must be a tank boss. I mean, that's always been the word on the street. Well, there's a tank boss. And I've certainly had tank bosses in the past, you know, that fish that everybody would steer clear of, and when that fish would get in a certain mood, everyone would stay away from him. But in really sitting here and just watching this tank, I really don't see any one fish that seems to have dominance. I mean, there are definitely some subdominant fish, like this Buccochromis is one of the smaller fish, one of the more timid fish. And there are certainly fish that are probably on the more aggressive side. Like, nobody seems to mess with this big coingi. You wouldn't think of a coingi as an aggressive fish, but everybody steers clear of him, and everyone sort of steers clear a little bit of, not steers clear, but really doesn't seem to engage much with the Fusco. At one point, I thought that this trout was the boss, but he's just super mellow. It's definitely not the turquoise hat or the strigatus, or even the hawk for that matter. I mean, they don't really seem to want to get into anything with anybody, just kind of mind their own business. I don't think I've ever seen those fish chase anybody. So my question is, I mean, does there have to be a boss? I mean, maybe if this Venusus wasn't such a little pygmy, maybe he'd be the boss, because Venusus, of course, are notorious for their attitude, their aggression level. But this one's a little guy. At one point, I thought for sure that this Buccochromis rhodesii was going to be a boss. But again, I mean, everyone in here has just sort of, it's just kind of chill. So I'm just wondering, I mean, do you think that there has to be a boss? Is that the way these tanks roll? Or do you think it's possible that a tank could just have fish in it that don't really care what the other fish are doing and just sort of mind their own business? One thing is certain, after I pulled the plants out from the left side of this aquarium, this tank could definitely hold some more fish. So I'm trying to work out the acquisition of a few more African cichlids. I could easily put another 10 in here without much of a problem. So maybe after they've established the pecking order, maybe that's where it settles out. If you have a good boss, like a boss that is on the mellow side, once it's been established that they are in charge, maybe everything settles down until somebody wants to, like, challenge that. So I don't know, what do you think? It's a similar situation in the South Central American tank, where there isn't a fish that's a definitive everybody stays away from, everybody is like sort of corralled in the opposite side of the aquarium. There isn't that kind of a boss. I mean, if I had to put my money on one of them, believe it or not, it'd probably be the Salvini, even though she's smaller than most of these fish. Everybody really makes a point of just being away from her. I think she's in the cave right now on the right side of the tank. I mean, you'd think one of the bigger fish, like the Oscar or the big Vieja, you think they'd take over this tank and sort of be pushing everybody around, but they're not. Some fish are a little territorial, like the Nicaragua protects this little area right here. This is the Nicaragua territory. Right to the left of that rock is the Firemouth's territory. Everybody else just sort of wanders around. The chocolate cichlids tend to kind of stay in the shadows and just stay out of everybody's way. Yeah, I don't think the geos want any trouble. Green Terror back there, he doesn't mess with anybody. The Severum was a lot more aggressive in the 90-gallon, mostly against the red-spotted gold Severum. Pretty mellow in here. Oh, there's the Salvini, just came out of her cave. Some fish, like the bigger fish, like the Vieja, just sort of ignore her. Even though she might nip at them. The other fish certainly don't want anything to do with her. But compared to the horror stories that I've heard about Salvini, she's actually fairly mellow. Look at this geo. This geo's got like darker vertical bars than he had over in the 90-gallon. All the fish that I brought over sort of change colors. So there you go. Share your thoughts. Let me know what you think about tank bosses. Does there always have to be one, or can you have a tank where everybody just sort of gets along? I guess a tank like that would be called a community tank, like this one here. This is a planted community tank with rainbows and rasboras and rummy noses and cory cats and lemon tetras, and you'd call this a community that where everybody sort of gets along. There's no real boss. I mean, there's probably bosses among certain groups, like there's probably a head rummy nose, a rummy nose shot caller. And in a tank like this, I suspect after a while some of these albino Ocharas will probably be more dominating. The electric blue Ochara certainly doesn't get pushed around by anybody. Hecali and the gold-spotted Severum, just on pure size, they don't get messed with. And the Congos and the Buenos Aires tetras, I mean, they're just always shooting around, always moving too fast to get into it with anybody. They do go after each other a little bit. Anyway, just a thought that crossed my mind. Does a tank have to have a boss? Maybe not. Maybe even a cichlid tank can be without a boss. Certainly seems to be the situation here. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. Be sure to hit that thumbs up, notification bell, and subscribe if you like the channel. And stop by on Saturdays, most Saturdays. Some Saturdays I'm off for the Cichlids and Coffee live stream on Saturdays at 11 a.m. And if you'd like to subscribe, just hit me right here on the mug, right there on my face, and you'll be subscribed. And if you want the best tips, my best fish keeping tips, just go ahead and hit that playlist. Thank you for tuning in.